What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a found footage horror movie. And as a lot of you out there know, I'm a huge fan of the found footage horror genre. I'm a big fan of found footage movies in general. I really enjoy the genre because a lot of times when filmmakers don't have a lot of money, they will approach the found footage genre because it is an easy way to tell a compelling story with a low budget. You don't necessarily have to have the best actors, you don't have to have the best cinematography, and you can tell a story that can truly grip and sometimes horrify viewers. I think the Blair Witch Project, obviously there's a ton of examples over the past several years of incredible found footage movies. Hell House LLC I'm a huge fan of. I love the movie Lake Mungo. Recently the film Savage Land I watched was really fantastic. Butterfly Kisses. There's a ton of really amazing found footage horror movies that exist in this sphere that are definitely worth checking out. And this was a movie that I've seen floating around in the scene for a while where the reviews are kind of all over the place, but I've seen enough really positive reviews for this one that I was like, okay, I'll jump in and check this one out. And the movie I'm going to be discussing today is Horror in the High Desert. Horror in the High Desert is directed by Dutch Marich. In July 2017, an experienced outdoor enthusiast vanished in the northern Nevada while on an outdoor excursion. After an extensive search, he was never located. On the 3-year anniversary of his disappearance, friends and loved ones recall the events leading up to his vanishing and for the first time speak about the horrifying conclusion of his fate. So, like I said, a huge fan of these films. This is in the more mockumentary style. I love mockumentary style found footage films. Recently I reviewed the movie Savage Land, which I thought was absolutely incredible. There's a film that goes around in the sphere that I really enjoy called Lake Mungo that also does a really great job of being very slow-paced and methodical and scary by its presentation methods and by the performances in the film. And this movie was none of that. This movie, unfortunately, is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's hard to call this a movie. It really fails in its execution. The performances are absolutely abysmal. It's terrible writing. It doesn't earn the payoff that it's going for. And so many of these slow-paced found footage films, whether it be mockumentary or straightforward found footage, when they do the slow-paced build-up, you have to have great execution. There's a film I talked about recently that's a little lesser known called Evil Things that was really low budget, and I loved it because it was a slow-paced build-up, but there was always something kind of alluding to what you were getting at, and there was always something looming in the background to keep you engaged. It felt hyper-realistic. There's all different approaches that a filmmaker can take to kind of keep you immersed. This film is telling you the story of this young man, Gary, which if you don't know that his name is Gary in the first 10 minutes of the movie, you're gonna find out because they say Gary like 175 times in this movie. I made a joke in my Letterboxd review that if you took a shot every time they said Gary, you would be dead in the first 10 minutes. They tell you that he's gone missing. He's this adventure excursionist that loves going on these hikes. He's kind of to himself. He's very awkward and uncomfortable. You can tell that he clearly doesn't fit in a lot of his peer groups, and he loves trains. There's all these different elements that they introduce to him, and the characters that you see in the film who are talking through a majority of the runtime are his sister, a news reporter who worked on the story for this film, and one of the detectives that's involved in investigating the case. And throughout the first 45-50 minutes of the movie, you're getting expositional dialogue about the lead up to his disappearance. Like, they found out he was making this adventure blog that he had like 50,000 followers on. You find out that he was gay and that it wasn't in this part of Nevada being gay. He was very uncomfortable with it. He wasn't comfortable with telling a lot of people about it. And so you get little bits of information about his character to try to tie you to him so that when the last act blow up, what actually happened, finally occurs, you feel some sort of sympathy. You feel connected for his character. The problem is the first 50 minutes of this movie is the most repetitive garbage I've ever seen. You're getting the same dialogue delivered over and over and over and over again, where you're like, I get it. He liked going on nature walks. I get it. He liked trains. I get it. He had this blog. They're just saying it. Then they'll go to the next person who says the exact same thing. And the thing about regular documentaries is that even when you're studying a serial killer, if they're jumping from person to person to person and they're talking about one isolated event. The thing that makes a documentary interesting is that each person has a different perspective on what occurred. Each person is perceiving it differently. They're processing it differently. When you're having three characters say the same thing over and over and over again with no new information, no new perspective, no new ideas as to what's going on surrounding the case, it's just repetitive. You don't know how to fill your runtime, so you didn't establish this story well enough to be able to give three different perspectives. It also doesn't help that the actors in this are terrible, and it's unfortunate, but they are really bad. Every single line delivery in this is hilarious. It feels so forced and unnatural. I talked about the film Savage Land that I watched recently, which was a mockumentary about this isolated event that happened in this small border town. The film was a commentary on immigration. It also was incredibly scary. It was tense. It was insane. I loved everything about it. The performances were all realistic. All of the actors that they got to play these characters felt like real people. So when you were watching the movie, you were gripped to everything that was going on, mostly because the story was really interesting. And even though you were getting information about the same isolated event, you were getting different perspectives. In this, you have bad actors delivering the same lines over and over again. This was shot around the pandemic, so there are some sequences that you can tell are like drone footage that looks a little bit better, but like the reporter who's in like the Zoom cube with no name at the bottom just feels cheap in those moments. And I get that you have limitations, but find a way to present it visually that it doesn't feel really lazy. The little title cards that pop up for the people when they're being interviewed look like a freshman in college and film school could make those. Like, that's how simplistic it is. There's no attention to detail with those kind of things. It doesn't feel like a professionally made documentary. Those elements feel very thrown together. And so you have that whole bloated slog of the beginning runtime of the movie. And then once we get into the final footage of Gary's last moments, you think that it would be this really tense, anxiety-inducing experience, and it's not. It's this really low-res, grainy, black and white night vision footage that the camera keeps cutting on and off, and obviously you get what he sees through that lens. And sure, you could say that there are some moments that are spooky or that are tense towards the end, but for me, I have to have some kind of build-up that gets me to that point. When the scene before that is, this was his last thing to the camera, to his blog, telling his audience about going back out and investigating this thing that he went through, and it's the most horrifying thing I've ever watched. And the actor is just delivering the most flat lines of dialogue to where there is no suspense or tension on it. It's just really bad. And I don't get this frustrated about watching movies very frequently, but when I watch something that feels like it completely wasted my time, it irritates me. And by the end of this, I felt absolutely nothing but anger. I just felt like this was a person who probably has a lot of respect for this genre, and it's fine, you want to take a crack at it, but just pay more attention to detail with the little things. Keep the audience invested. Do better at writing dialogue that's captivating and interesting. Don't have the actors repeat the same regurgitated dialogue over and over and over again. It's just like, we get the point. We understand what you're going for. Now get there. And the movie felt like it took so long to get where it wanted to go that by the time it got there, I felt like I wasted my time watching that. And I would not recommend this movie to my worst enemy. It was absolutely abysmal, and I will never watch this again. So have you seen Horror in the High Desert? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Bland, terribly written, just really poorly executed. I'm still irritated that I watched it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.